One of the greatest AD carries of all time, fresh off a historic three-peat, the finals MVP and half of one of the most dominant bot lane duos we've seen in the game, the last SKT ADC is done. But Guma is leaving after a year where he faced pretty much the most adversity of his career, and for the second off-season in a row now, there are big questions about T1's future.
Before we get into today's story, I'd like to thank Cash App. Cash App isn't just changing the game when it comes to your personal finance, they're also sponsoring our newest season of The Story Of. With the Cash App card, you can design your own debit card, get exclusive discounts on everything from video games to coffee, and they don't bother you with anything annoying like monthly minimums or random fees. Cash App also makes sure that your money stays your money, with no fee overdraft coverage up to $200 if you direct deposit at least $300 in paychecks each month and spend with your Cash App card. The bottom line here is that Cash App's got your back. Download Cash App today using the link in the description and get started. Now, let's get back into the video.
Worlds is over, and the league off-season is in full swing, with rumours and reports flying in every direction. But surely the biggest so far is Guma's departure from T1 just days after hoisting the Summoners Cup again. Guma's new team has yet to be confirmed, and according to a report from Sheep Esports, Fahey will be replacing him on T1. While signing Fahey might have some more casual fans scratching their heads, given that the last thing most people remember him doing was struggling at Worlds 2024, I actually think T1 fans will be pleasantly surprised here. Fahey spent 2024 on Gen G, where he was a huge part of that team's success, including their win at MSI. And while they certainly did lose to ZOFGK's last Worlds together in Paris, you can't exactly hold that over the head of the then 18-year-old. Fahey spent this year in the LPL playing for JDG, and while they didn't make it to any international events, I don't think that's down to pace. The team had an extremely fraught year, struggling with roster changes, organizational issues, and some key players underperforming, especially Scout, who just didn't play the way we know he can. But through it all, Fahey was a consistent rock for JDG, and a lot of the analysts who have spent the year watching the LPL think he's only gotten better despite his results. So a chance to play with the greatest support of all time should only give Fahey more opportunities to improve, and as much as I'm very sad to see Guma go, I can certainly see a world where Fahey gets even better next year and proves he's worthy of a spot on T1. But with all that said, why are we even having this conversation at all? Why is Guma leaving the team he's played with for his entire career just weeks after winning Worlds and earning Finals MVP? Well, Guma started this chaotic year not even certain that he'd have a starting spot on the lineup. He was benched in favor of Smash, a rising star who'd been in T1's development system since 2021 and gained some international fans last year when he played alongside Reckless in Challengers. In my mind, there's no question that Smash is going to be a star someday, and he showed a lot of promise during his time on the starting roster. But benching Guma, fresh off 2 Worlds Championships in a row, was pretty controversial at the time. From T1's point of view, Gumayusi had gaps in his champion pool, something that even Guma himself acknowledged in later interviews. He'd historically struggled on more mobile carries like Kai'Sa, Ezreal, and Zeri, and so to prove he deserved the starting spot over Smash, Guma was grinding those champions in solo queue. And although Smash did struggle a bit, almost certainly due to the pressures of playing for a team like T1, this kid puts up some really impressive performances during the LCK Cup.
And just look to lock this one down, Cyclone not getting the most value ever as they dive on top of Ruler, Smash in that backline. Ruler survives for a while. Smash as well is just diving on top of Chovy, takes down both of the carries. And Keen gets one, but it is all over for this fight. T1 matters into their own hands, and Smash comes in clutch.
And look, Gumayusi is no stranger to this type of situation. In 2021, he took the starting AD carry spot from Teddy, and while that wasn't exactly the same, Guma knows that even veteran pros always have to prove themselves.
사실 모든 선수들은 항상 주전 경쟁 속에서 살아온다고 생각하고 뭐 폼이나 실력이 떨어졌을 때 언제든지 이렇게 바뀔 수 있는 게 이 프로게이머의 위치라는 걸 다시금 좀 자각한 것 같고, 이번 기회에 좀 더 제 장점과 단점에 대해서 깊게 생각하면서 그런 부분들을 보완하고 또 강화시키는 시간이었어서 도움이 많이 됐던 것 같습니다.
In the end, T1 CEO Joe Marsh stepped in with yet another controversial decision, this time to overrule T1's coaching staff and put Guma back into the starting lineup. There were a few hiccups after that, but for the most part, Guma spent the rest of the year in his seat next to Keria. He was instrumental to T1 making it to MSI, where they came painfully close to winning the whole thing and was a critical element of T1's Worlds campaign. But there's another side to this story, one that's just as important, and that's everything that happened to Gumayusi outside of the game. See, while he was benched, Guma was absolutely drowning in a slew of online and offline hatred and harassment. The so-called T1 Gal or T1 Gallery, a highly vocal and infamously toxic minority of the fan base, had it out for Guma more or less from his earliest days on the roster. But after he got benched, they smelled blood in the water, and things only got worse. We saw all the worst elements of the T1 fandom, trucks driving around Seoul, flaming the team, funeral wreaths sent to headquarters, and a huge number of brutal online comments. Guma had to shoulder it all while working to widen his champion pool and scrapping with a prodigal up-and-comer just to earn his starting spot. It was an extremely mentally draining year for a player that has always been, for my money, the game's most clutch and consistent AD carry. We've known Guma to be calm and collected even in insanely high-pressure situations. This year, he had to do that in his personal life too. So there's something quite poetic about the way that this year's World Championship played out. Not only was Gumayusi critical to T1 winning again, but he did it by flexing his newly expanded champion pool, especially Kai'Sa, which is probably the champion he's been most criticized for over the course of his career. He popped off against AL in a must-win Game 4 that proved he's a major threat on Kai'Sa now.
Hope tries to get away with the flash, but he's still caught up in the fear. He waits to use the cleanse. Hope locked up by the Ornn, but he gets enough distance. AL staying alive for now. Kyle and Hope both get away. T1 goes in. Gumayusi with a killer instinct, but Hope still lives underneath the turret. Doran's going in with a bellows breath, and it's first blood over to Keria. Kyle tries to counterattack with Zenith Blade, but he does not have what he needs.
It was good enough to force a Kai'Sa ban against Guma in the Game 5 draft of finals. He picked up Misfortune instead, where he did this.
The ulti can do a lot of work. Doran going in, doesn't connect hookshot wall dive, immediately CC'd. Exhaust coming in as well. Combo over the top from Guma. Finds two. Exhaust as Keria moves his way to the backline. Faker rains down from the sky. Locks up BDD and obliterates the Hope for KT roster.
He did over 7k damage in that fight, by the way. Absolute cinema on the big stage. And for me, that's the biggest part of this off-season news. There's a lot of rumors and guesses flying around English, Chinese, and Korean social media right now, and it's definitely too soon to say exactly what led Guma to leave T1. But there's no question that this year proved Gumayusi is the game's most resilient AD carry. Just minutes after winning Worlds, he told my colleague in the finals press conference that this year has taught him even greater mental strength.
I always believe that those hardships and hard times always gives me lessons and let me learn from it. And then this time I was able to learn in game-wise, first off, about my weakness in game, and it helped me a lot in order to fix those issues. And also I was able to kind of strengthen my mental fortitude and also realize that those hardships are in the end, in order to make something great and something better happen in the future. I was able to realize that.
And honestly, that's always been a huge part of what makes Guma special. In the biggest games, in the biggest moments, this guy doesn't crack. No matter how doomed a game might look, he finds the angle for an impossible steal or an incredible fight. T1 has played in the last 4 Worlds finals, winning 3 in a row. How do they keep getting there? By winning fights that no other team in the world could win, and turning around games that seem absolutely lost. Gumayusi was one of the biggest pieces of that puzzle. There's a lot we don't know right now, but there's a couple of things I know for sure. This is a player who's going to be a major asset to whatever team he joins next, and Pays, for his part, has some very big shoes to fill.